Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Veteran Teacher Files. I'm your host, the Dragon Lady, where we talk about the stories educators carry with them long after the bell rings. Some stories are funny, some are frustrating, and some sit quietly in the back of our minds for years until one day they suddenly make sense. Today's episode starts with a paper bag. Yep, a paper bag. Not exactly what you'd expect to hear in a conversation about school safety, but here we are. And before we dive in, if you enjoy this episode, don't forget to follow, subscribe, share it with a fellow educator or parent, and leave a comment. Because if there's one thing teachers love almost as much as office coffee, it's processing childhood trauma through storytelling. So, this memory came back to me recently during a conversation in my admin program where we were talking about school lockdown procedures. Now, lockdowns are something we talk about very differently today than we did decades ago. Today, there are protocols, acronyms, trainings, emergency plans, safety audits, reunification procedures, drills, and probably a 3-ring binder somewhere labeled in all caps. But when I was little, apparently our school's emergency preparedness plan involved one man, one broom, and a paper bag. That's it. That was the system. I was in the primary wing of my elementary school, probably first, second, or third grade. I don't remember exactly, but I do remember recess. I remember the principal walking out onto the playground carrying a broom with a paper bag over his head. And we had all been taught that if we saw that, we were supposed to immediately drop to the ground and stay completely still. No talking, no moving, just silence. Now, as a kid, you don't always understand the why behind things. You just know adults are serious, so you follow directions. But what stayed with me wasn't fear exactly. It was the quiet. Playgrounds are never quiet. There's always somebody screaming about tetherball, somebody crying because they got tagged too hard, somebody trying to trade a toy for some fruit roll-up. But that day, silence. And I remember feeling this eerie heaviness, even though I didn't fully understand it. And then life moved on. And honestly, it became one of those weird little childhood memories that you file away under things adults do that apparently make sense at the time. Right next to duck and cover under your desk in case of a nuclear war. Because apparently the educational system used to believe desks had a magical anti-missile power. Now, years later, during my admin coursework, we started discussing the history of school lockdowns and school shootings. And suddenly, that memory came flooding back. And I realized that playground drill happened during the same year as a school shooting that had made national news. And it hit me. Oh, that's what that was. The adults knew something terrifying had happened somewhere else, and they were trying, in the best way they knew how at the time, to prepare us without fully scaring us. And honestly, when you think about it, the paper bag was probably somebody's attempt to make it less frightening. Let's not alarm the children. Harold, grab a bag and conceal your identity. Very official, very educational, very OSHA adjacent. But in fairness, school safety protocols back then were still evolving. Schools were trying to respond to situations nobody wanted to imagine happening in educational spaces. And sadly, over the years, lockdown drills become more common, more structured, and more serious. Now, today's students know words like lockdown, shelter in place, active threat. And for many adults, especially older generations, that's shocking. Because when grandparents or older parents hear a 6-year-old casually say, "Oh yeah, we had a lockdown drill today," it feels deeply unsettling. And honestly, it is unsettling. Kids today practice emergency procedures the same way we practiced fire drills. And teachers, we carry the emotional weight of trying to keep children calm during situations we ourselves hope will never happen. Because here's the thing nobody really talks about enough. Teachers are expected to become emotional first responders, not just educators, not just counselors, but protectors. And that's a lot, especially when you're also trying to teach multiplication to a kid who was just trying to eat a glue stick 30 minutes ago. Now, I do think humor has a place in hard conversations because educators survive through humor, and that's just facts. If teachers didn't laugh, half of us would just stare blankly into the distance every time someone asked, "Can you cover a class during your prep?" Humor helps us process fear. It helps people connect. And honestly, looking back now, there's something almost cinematic about this memory. A silent playground, tiny children lying frozen on the asphalt, and one principal walking around looking like a rejected scarecrow from a low-budget mystery movie. It sounds absurd now, but underneath the absurdity was care. Adults trying to protect children with the tools and understanding they had at the time. And I think that's important to remember. That memory also reminded me how children absorb emotional energy long before they understand context. Kids know when adults are afraid, even when nobody explains anything. And sometimes those moments stay buried for years until something unlocks them later in life. For me, it was sitting in an admin class realizing, oh wow, that wasn't just a weird, strange memory. That was history brushing up against my childhood. And maybe that's why these conversations matter. Because school safety isn't just policy. It's emotional memory. For students, for teachers, for administrators, for families, and every generation experiences it differently. So now, I want to hear from you. What's a school memory that didn't make sense until you became an adult? Or, if you're an educator, what's something students experience today that would have shocked your younger self? Head down to the comments and let's talk about it. And if this episode resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, follow, and share the Veteran Teacher Files with a friend and leave a review. It really helps grow the channel and it helps more educators find these conversations. Until next time, I'm the Dragon Lady and this has been the Veteran Teacher Files. Stay safe and stay sane.